Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
So since then, since our show last time, there's been a Bill Maher show that's been on.
I saw it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sitting there watching it, and I got pissed, aggravated and angry, because one of the things that I noticed, what the right leaning or the right person that they put in there, all those guys do is come on the show with basically a very simple objective. They're going to insert one or two or three talking points or things into the conversation almost naturally, hoping that no one sees it.
Okay.
So no one sees it, does it. And the right-leaning guy did it. What he did was he said, well, when Barr said this, here's spying and surveillance, but really what's the difference between those two things?
I remember that.
I was sitting there and I was thinking, if I'm on the panel and you do that while I'm there, I am going to call you on it.
That's really important, Bill. Because I think this is a question that a lot of people have in their minds, is that in terms of how did Trump succeed in getting elected? I mean, it really comes back to that, is that how, and isn't it like what we would call a false equivalence, or they're trying to change the definition of terms? Because I thought the same thing when I heard Barr say in front of Congress, and of course he was stuttering a whole lot, and I don't think he delivered it with a lot of integrity and authority.
No, actually, it was on purpose. It was on
purpose
that he was studying. Yeah. So let me show you why. Because in our sales cycle, if we're trying to sell something, there's a reward, there is a anticipation, and there's uncertainty. When the person hems and haws and goes back and forth, they're actually creating uncertainty or dopamine inside the body, inside the people they want to. It freaks the other side out, and they don't know what to do with it. Even the Democrats go, listen, Ms. Barr, are you sure that you're putting spying next to this? And he goes, well, that's an uncertainty moment. And the people that are rooting for him are going to vote for him and say, oh, no, those things are the same. They convolute those things. See, the biggest thing in truth and in propaganda is to propagate a message, is I want to set the message that I like, that's unfamiliar or that's maybe not accepted, next to something that is accepted. I want to put them very close to each other. So if I want to get women to smoke cigarettes, and it's during the time of the women's suffrage and they're trying to get to vote, well, why don't I set cigarette smoking next to voting? Why don't I just do that and say, this is women's rights, this is women's freedoms, this is things, and cigarettes are the torches of freedom. And that's exactly what the Edward Bernays and the cigarette companies did. Exactly that. They went to the Macy's Day Parade. They parade women's suffrages. They had packets of cigarettes in their belts. They reached around, and he put the press all in front of him. There it is. Torches of freedom. Cigarettes as the torches of freedom? Really?
Well, but it made it acceptable, right? It made it not only acceptable, but it was like they wanted to wear it with a badge of honor. I'm going to be free. I'm going to be able to vote, and you're not going to tell me I can't smoke.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. And literally millions of women died over that moment because of cancer.
Fast forward to April 2019, Attorney General Barr sitting there making it surveillance, like legal surveillance with a FISA warrant, which a judge or a court has to approve.
That's right.
Which is an investigative tool, is now being equated with or put on the same level as spying.
That's what he did. And he was the first messenger to do, well, not just the first, but him, and then Trump picked up and reinforced it. And this guy on Bill Maher reinforced it, is I am going to make those things, because see, spying is an easier word to understand than surveillance. You know, you're doing the same thing. You're looking into somebody, but it's not without due cause and without a very, legal mind looking at it like a judge. There's only 6 of them. I didn't even know how small. I believe that there's only 6 FISA judges. There's not a lot of them, that specialize in, we're not going to do this unless there is some evidence for. And there was evidence for. And it doesn't mean that, that the that the person was doing anything bad. It just means that there was evidence for. Of course,
well, enough to warrant an investigation.
To warrant us to look at this and say, there might be something illegal or criminal going on here. Judge, could you give us permission to go look at this? Because this doesn't look very good.
And if it was truly a fishing expedition with no basis in fact to justify it, then the judge would not have approved that FISA warrant. At least that's the way it's supposed to work, right?
That's correct. Now, all of this intellectual talking that we're doing creates understanding and clarity. But all of this stuff bounces off of the elephant brain. It does not register. The writer in the brain has already chosen to say, Barr's my guy. He's calling him the same thing. I trust him. I don't trust Mueller. That he, because he's in charge of Mueller, is in charge of the truth now, because our people know the truth, whereas those people don't know the truth. So when you create an enemy image of somebody like a Democrat, even a Russian, if you create an enemy image, or Bush's famous the axis of evil.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
That is a deliberate reward and a deliberate imprint of labeling North Korea, Iraq, and Iran. We're going to pick off the axis of evil. If this is really problematic, because who's going to be next in the military hunt to spend military money? Gosh, I'm feeling a little, more sad for Iran a little bit, because, you guys have oil, and, or Korea, because, you're giving us a good reason to come in there because of it. And by the way, even if you don't have the thing that we're accusing it from, clearly by Iraq, we're going to go in and pretend that you do have the thing, and then say, oh gosh, I'm sorry, you don't have weapons of mass destruction.
But, I remember that. I remember I can actually go back myself to 2002, where I'm having a discussion with someone who was very much of the belief that the government would find the weapons of mass destruction. And I said, well, but we're not even sure they have them. Oh, they'll find them, was what he said. Oh, they'll find them. And then years of war and $1 trillion later, there was nothing.
Later, yeah. So the elephant brain wants to get hijacked into something it knows or vote for the team. So the appropriate response to a person putting a talking point or inserting a near narrative like that between, this surveillance piece and this spying piece is to separate it slightly and say, this one is a legal thing, this one's not a legal thing. Now, once you separate it slightly, you need to call the person on what they have just done. It might have sounded like this. Listen, Mark, I hear that you said the sentence that spying and surveillance are very same and you can't tell the difference. Now, I feel curious and a little irritated. Is this, number one, is this something that you came in and planned to do and insert into this conversation? Number two, are you just repeating what Barr said or what the president said, and because you drank the Kool-Aid to say that those two things are the same? Or number three, are you just trying to rationalize what your team has said because it's not helping America?
Wow. That's fantastic. So you gave the answer before I could ask it. I was going to ask you, okay, Bill, so what would you do in that situation if you were on that panel and that guy said that, and so you just delivered it, you just did it. So there, because I think that's where I think there's a lot of fear in about half of America.
Yes.
About who is possibly going to be a candidate who can go up against Trump.
Right.
And have success in a debate moment. And what you're talking about here, what happened on that show this past week, where somebody tries to draw a false equivalency or associate these two things and change people's beliefs about what spying is. And actually, I guess I would argue, I think they still think spying is bad, but now what they're saying is the surveillance that was legal is bad, right? And then they question everything going back to, I'm sure, this so-called witch hunt. Now they're saying, oh, it was a witch hunt, right? Because it was bad. But who could go up against Trump and have the skills to really fight back when he calls people Crooked Hillary, Little Marco, Lion Ted, whatever. I mean, he labels these people, and that's not even changing beliefs. It's more just labeling.
That's correct. That's right. Labeling is a very effective way to instantly brand somebody and minimalize them and put them in a box. The easiest way to dehumanize a person is to label them. Watch, I'll just do it, very simply. Oh, you're an addict? Whoa.
Yeah.
Notice I just called somebody that is struggling with a mental health issue. I just labeled them and reduced them into a box. That's a bad thing. That's a bad thing. Even if you go to a psychological label, it's problematic. Oh, he's a narcissist. Holy crap. I just put him in the box because now the person says, no, I'm not. I have, they can actually build a narrative that is a separate narrative, because as soon as you put a person in a box or a label, the person has, if they're in their side does not believe that label, even though they're doing all the elements, it runs off of the elephant brain. How do we know this to be true is because of Kellyanne Conway's husband that posted the diagnostic of the, what it was. And you read through the diagnostic, go, so yeah, he's kind of done all those things.
Well, why does that not seem to stick on this president that much? Because I think he's been called a narcissist by what appear to be a lot of rational people.
That's correct.
And certainly his actions, like you said, based on the definition of a narcissist, would seem to fit.
Yeah.
Why is that box not hurt him? Or did that come? I mean, we knew that before the election.
Well, because the truth is because the truth is the way that truth works, and we're going to get into how the truth is constructed is that I don't want to believe my team or my identity as a Republican or my guy that I voted for. I've put my bet on this person. I have voted and put my bet in. And when a person puts a bet in on something, very significant happens inside the brain. The elephant brain starts moving in that direction. And all you got to do is just keep tapping it to keep it going in the same direction. And when you just want a small group of folks that are undecided to come on your side, all you need to do is just keep messaging a minor message that's right next to create enough doubt to either go inactive, the elephant sits down, or to slightly move in their direction and not believe the other side. So that one's really part. So the way to do it is actually, and it's going to be a weird thing to say, is give empathy for the person and what the person is saying. So if I give empathy for what the person is saying, and even though I don't agree with it,
right,
what happens is I'm actually reducing the emotion of what the person has said, and I'm also helping the other people get clearer in their own mind that I'm not the enemy. See, watch this, Tom. You just be President Trump and just say, build the wall, and watch what I say next.
Okay. We're going to build the wall.
So you feel confident about providing security for Americans, is that correct?
Yes.
And you'd really like to make sure that Americans are safe, is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And I hear that you would like fairness for the Americans that are here so that we protect our jobs, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Well, let's see if we can get fairness regarding jobs and get the safety that we need. That would be in line with the budget. Would that work okay for you too?
Sure, if we didn't have to spend any more money.
Interesting, you went there. He wanted to throw $6 million onto it. See,
I don't remember. What did he want to do?
Yeah, 6.8 million, 6.8 billion, million.
Oh.
6.8 billion.
I see. You're right, because he wants to spend more money on the wall. Yeah. No,
Yeah. See, he wants the number he wants, and he wants the number he wants, and he wants the fanfare that he wants to say that he did it. And he's actually trying to create the fanfare with nothing there. He did the same thing with his airline. He did the same thing with his steaks. Same thing with his casinos. Even when they were failing, he came on and said, "No, they're not, and here's what it's doing." As it was going into the
Sure.
as the thing was falling apart. So it's not. It's about how a person messages branding and marketing and stays on point from the place of here's a reward, something you want. Here's the anticipation of getting that thing you want. And here is the uncertainty on whether or not the other side is going to give it to us. And the winning is getting them to do it. And it's uncertain if I can get them to do it.
Do you think that's intentional on his part, where he says, we'll see what happens? I mean, there's so many things he says end with, we'll see what. Is that an intentional injection of?
Well, that's what he's learned and practiced to do as a language person, and he's learned to speak in very, very small sound bites. And what happens, he's learned to be from the uncertainty place, be non-committal to doing the thing. Meanwhile, he's getting people to do everything from rip people off to steal things, to write contracts, to pay off people. The stuff there's some ethical problems and there's some moral problems to them, as well as some legal problems to them. But the way the brain wants to do is it wants to be in agreement with people that fit our identity of somebody that has moved us emotionally. This person has moved a group of people emotionally and has tapped into it's not so much disenfranchised, It's the individual that says the way it's working is not working for me. See, that's I have a lot of compassion for that, because guess what? It's not working for them. And here's a guy that was on TV. TV gives people a lot of respect. You know, TV gives people a lot of,
Yeah, no, it's America's royalty, right?
it's America's royalty. That's right. Celebrity it has a royalty piece to it. We're not worshiping our politicians until this. You know, our congressmen are going to like, wait till I get to see that congressman. I can't wait to hear them talk. You know, that's not what's happening. But I will listen to J-Lo and anybody else, right?
Sure.
You know, because wow, what do they have to say? You know, gosh, what did he? How did they weigh in?
Or let's take, Oprah, for instance. I
Oprah.
mean,
Mhm.
Oprah is, I think, seen very much that way. And actually just saw her interviewed, recently. And she, again, was asked, do you have anything you want to announce? Like, are you going to run for president? She's like, I have no interest in running for president. I will get behind somebody who I believe in and try and help them become president. But I would not be a good fit to be president, type of thing. But talk about there's a coveted endorsement, I'm sure, though, because someone of influence, right?
It's someone of influence, right? You know, she's kind of royalty. And we also do the same. There's also the thing that happens with affluence and money. There's a push on that we give a lot of respect and recognition to the person. It's also the person that's accomplished things in the past. A PhD got a lot more respect and recognition. Letter grades in school. Oh, your son is an A student. The problem with it is that when that respect and recognition goes to that person, what winds up happening what winds up happening is that person believes that they're better than the others rather than different than the others. There's many A students that can't socialize with others out of a paper bag. I mean, there's many PhDs that really have a hard time articulating things, but there's a lot of great C and D students that can literally run committees and run shows and run companies just very, very fine. Thank you very much. They don't need the A. And they'll hire all the people from Harvard and stuff to work for them because they got the smart people. But quite frankly, those folks don't have enough social skills to gather teams together to work collaboratively, which is what the C and the D student has. They don't have that. They can't do it just because of their thinking style and things like that. But looping back around, Tom, to this narrative of, listen, you said one of these three things. You said this sentence. Was it because it was a talking point and you came in here with it? Are you just drinking the Kool-Aid and saying this thing back? Or are you just rationalizing what this person has done and said because he's on your team? Just tell me which one of those three that you came in and do so I can have an adult to adult conversation.
Do they have to choose one of those three? Is that
there's no other choices.
No other way. There's no other place.
I already boxed them in. Yeah.
Okay.
They're in trouble because it's not their own idea.
Right.
Because this was my own idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Their own idea. You just said it was Barr's idea. You get it?
Right.
You know, because they can't say, well, this is the way I see spying. And no, it's not your own idea. It's clearly not your own idea. Either you preloaded this idea, you are just repeating the talking point unconsciously, or you're trying to rationalize bad behavior. And this is the weird part. Just like eating a cookie, even though 5 minutes later you said that you were on a diet. That's the way rationalization works. My team or my taste buds say that this person is on my side, and I'm just going to just hand a piece of cookie to the base, and I just got hired to do this, and they said I'm going to be on the show, so I'm the person that's up.
So is this just I'm trying to think of how, obviously I think it's more the third the third thing you're saying, right? It's or it could be the second or third, right? They're either it's the talking point and they're a good soldier and they're going to deliver it and defend their team no matter what, or they end up trying to rationalize it because they really couldn't stomach, really arguing or I guess aligning themselves with that belief.
Yeah, because then the next question is really a hard question. Are you going to advocate the chipping away of a legal precedent right now? Are you going to say spying and surveillance are the same thing? Because the legal precedent is this is what surveillance do, and we really want to support the concept of surveillance in case somebody is trying to do something that we don't like and that's really trying to undermine our primary constitutional values. Are you going to be a part of that? Because that is not helping America; it's hurting America. The strategy of this, and I just want to acknowledge, and this is what I would say to him if I was on the show. This is what I want to acknowledge. I can appreciate your conviction to fight for what your side is interested in doing, which is protecting the belief structures of your organization. Many organizations fight and do tragic things to protect themselves. It's a safety response. And what you're doing is just providing protection for Barr and Trump and the different people that have been convicted, and also the belief that they should be pardoned. You're promoting that spying and surveillance are the same thing. Then that allows, when the pardon to take place, that there's not a lot of kickback. This is really problematic.
And that's really, you just gave that person, you showed them empathy.
I did.
You just did. It does come back to empathy, doesn't it?
It does, because empathy is underneath the context language we speak, Tom, is up here, and then empathy sits below it. The false or the partial definition of empathy is put yourself in someone else's shoes, but that's not quite it. That's just put yourself in someone else's shoes and get stinky feet. Because now you feel as crappy as they do. So that definition is not as strong as a more solid definition of empathy is when you are when a feeling word and a need word are connected and agreed upon, and then you get empathy. Is that I feel doubtful because my need for truth isn't met. See how that almost resonated throughout me and you. Went
right.
Woo! Oh my gosh! Do you mean that when I'm feeling doubt is when truth is up? Yes, that's right. Now start answering truth, and then doubt goes away. Because once you start facing truth, the emotion shifts instantly. It just does, and that's where the heart of empathy is I got to find what the activator is. So, Trump is running with pretty much, 7 needs: protection, safety, respect, recognition, identity. There's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
But he's not running for collaboration.
No.
He's not trying to promote harmony. Those needs are not on his list.
Right. Okay. I agree.
So that is really, really problematic.
That's so true. So, when you were talking about the false equivalency and the 3 choices that you would come back to that person with, are you this, or this? The third one, he's what was it? It was that he's my, that's my team.
That's my team. That's my identity.
Mm-hmm. And I'm rationalizing it. Let's flip it from the current and take it to the past on the other side, because I think we see this happening all over the place. I remember when, Bill Clinton running for office in 92. And Jennifer Flowers comes out and says, I was his lover for all these years. And I remember myself, I'll use myself as an example, saying, well, but I think that somebody, and what they do in their personal life, and if they have an affair or whatever, that's personal, and it doesn't affect their ability to be president. And I probably was rationalizing that.
Yes, you were.
Because it was on my team.
So
right?
That's right. That's the way the team is. And Bill Maher did the same thing. He kept saying, "Oh, come on. It's da, 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 da." And then he had to eat crow on his own show. He had her on the show and says, "Listen, I'm big enough to do this. I was wrong, and you were right." And he is, and was that guy. And this is a part of his character flaw. See, if you think about character flaws, all of us have them.
Well, yeah, and isn't it unrealistic for us to think that our elected official is supposed to be this
Don't have a
perfect
character
picture of
flaw.
a person? I mean, yeah.
It surely didn't affect the people that voted for Ted Cruz, or surely didn't affect the people that voted for. We have character flaws as human beings. The key thing is that we want to appeal to our voters' elephant brain to say, we're on your side and we're generally in the right ballpark for your values and your moral sets.
Right.
We're generally close to that. And yeah. There's these outliers that you get to rationalize away, affairs and things like that. I mean, what would have made the difference if when we speak truth to power, what happens is that we've got to do it from the place of empathy. You've got to be compassionate for what the person's saying, even though you don't like what the person's saying. So if as the tape came out with
the Access Hollywood tape.
Yeah, the
Access Hollywood. Yeah,
Access Hollywood tape came out. There needed to be an action towards that during the debates. There needed to be action towards it, and it needed to be a compassionate response.
Action, yeah.
Wow, a compassionate response to that. Wow, I'm guessing that you were in the moment.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Trump, you were in the moment and you were just joking around with a buddy, and you were just talking about women's sexuality, and you were talking about how you approach women just kind of in a joking and kind of a locker room way. I think you just said it was locker room talk. Did I hear locker room talk correctly? Yes. Yeah, I can see how that you're getting some funny. I guess having a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old discussion about women's sexual parts is something that you're okay with.
Wow. Boy, can you imagine if that's what happened instead of Hillary saying, "No, we all know it wasn't locker room talk. We know you really meant it." Then it's just an argument between them.
Then it's just an argument. It's not empathy or compassion for what really happened. Was Trump partly has a 15-year-old mindset around sexuality and intimacy and how he talks and interacts with women. Now, the person that's listening to this from a Republican place, or the one that had voted for this, or a staunch supporter, would say, "Oh no, Bill, you're just the other side. You're just the thing." No, I'm not. I'm not the other side, because I can pick on the Democratic side too.
Oh, absolutely.
I have a list. I have a list of people. Oh, would you like to hear what so-and-so said and what he really meant by that? Because that's one of the powers of connecting with what is happening underneath the language or underneath the behavior of what someone's doing. is that there's people say things, and we're flawed human beings. And it doesn't mean that government needs to wait for the perfect leader or pretend that the leader they have is perfect and can't make no mistakes.
Right.
We've got to actually go, this was a mistake, and they need to clean it up, not pretend that they didn't say it. And that's one of the dangerous pieces that we're in right now. And when somebody pretends they don't say something that they've said, that actually creates uncertainty and muddies the water and allows them to get away with the next 10 messages.
Well, that's interesting, because that's something that we actually see happening a lot right now. And maybe that's a subject for, a future episode where we can take a deeper dive, because we see this happen where I'm trying to think of the most recent example that was just in the news, is that, oh yeah, Trump, is asked about the arrest of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And what do
That's
you think
correct.
about that? And how do you feel about it? Oh, I really don't know WikiLeaks. That's not really my thing. I don't know anything about it. And meanwhile, all the media, all they have to do is go into the tape archives not
Yeah.
too far back,
You're sitting
where
there
he says,
going,
I love WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is coming out with this and that. And so now
That's
he's
correct.
trying to have the audience believe, or his interesting. I call it the audience instead of the public.
That's right.
The
audience,
performer,
public, the performer. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
this WikiLeaks thing, he's not really paying much attention to. It doesn't really have anything to do with him.
What it does is it creates this dynamic called nice dead person, monster person, and we'll get into this next time. The next thing we'll take a look and put our arms around is, what's the difference between here's this monster person and here's this nice dead person, and then the nice dead person turns into a monster person, the monster person turns into a nice dead person. And this is one of the things that the language does, because as soon as he does the WikiLeaks, it inflames media and it blows them up into the monster person, and that creates the boogeyman. Oh, see those Democrats, see media, see those evil people, they're being monster people again. All I said is, I don't know this. I'm the nice guy over here. And then he says something monstery, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh. And it's the way language is being used. And there's a response that media needs to start using when he starts saying things like that. And when any politician goes down the path of changing their narrative just to get a dopamine hit, just to get a rise out of the opposition so they can demonize the other side. And this is what the difference between how do you deal with a 5-year-old doing a tantrum and and having an adult conversation, because even on both sides there's tantruming going on both sides that is really very much a part of the dynamic between monster person and nice dead person. And Tom, I feel delighted to talk with you next time about that one, because that one's a really big piece.
I look forward to it, and I'm sure our listeners will too. Thanks so much, Bill. Well, let's leave it there for today.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Tom. All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you next time.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.